We haven't met in a while, so I think it's appropriate that we introduce ourselves, and then maybe we'll take a roll call. Perhaps can I do roll call? Can the introduction be viewed as a roll call acknowledgement? We don't have the electronic items working. Is that a fair? Okay, very good. I will start to my far left. Senator.
Well, good morning. I'm Senator Ghazala Hashmi, and I represent the 10th Senatorial District, which is parts of City of Richmond, Chesterfield, as well as all of Powhatan. Nice to have you here.
Good afternoon. I'm Delegate Patrick Hope. I represent Arlington, the 47th District, and this is my third year on the commission.
I'm State Senator Barbara Favola. I represent currently parts of three jurisdictions in Northern Virginia, parts of Arlington, Fairfax, and Loudoun, but that will soon change, and my entire district will be in Arlington. I have been on the commission for several years now, but I am delighted that you're here and hope we have a wonderful, productive session.
I'm Delegate Bobby Orrock, representing the 54th District. That's a little bit of Caroline County and most of Spotsylvania. Chair of the House Health Committee, and have had the honor of serving on the Disability Commission since its inception in the 90s.
I'm Delegate Otto Waxman. I represent the 75th District. We have quite a few localities, 5 counties and 2 cities. It's Emporia, Franklin City, Sussex, Southampton, Brunswick, and a little bit of Lunenburg. And I am a brand new member on this commission. I'm looking forward to it.
Hello, I'm Delegate Philip Scott. It's first year on the commission. I currently serve the 88th District, which encompasses Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg, Stafford, and Fauquier counties, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we can get done this year.
My name is Connor Cummings, and I'm known for speaking in front of Congress with my Mickey Mouse ears on. They made me feel comfortable in large crowds and rooms.
Thank you. John?
I'm John Tollish, and I have the hearing loss, and I'm a lawyer with the U.S. Treasury Department, for my career in Washington until I retired. And I was trained in one of the very first American program for hard of hearing children in the city of New York way back in the 20th century. And and also I worked briefly for the New York State Advocate for the Disabled, and learned something there when I was in law school. And I know I actually used some of that experience last year on the commission. And I guess that's it for now. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Laufer, and I have a child with a disability. I've been on the commission, I think, for 2, maybe 3 years, and I'm pleased to be here today. Thank you.
We'll ask the clerk, do we have a quorum?
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is the election of a chair. So I will open the floor for nominations.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I would
Yes.
like to nominate you, Senator Barbara Favola, to serve as our chair for this session.
Thank you, Senator Hashmi. Thank you, Delegate Hope. May I have a motion to close nominations?
I so move.
Okay. All those in favor of closing the nominations for chair signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. I will now ask that we vote for Senator Barbara Favola to be chair of the Disability Advisory Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Without objection, I will note that the vote is unanimous. Is that sufficient? Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the election of a vice chair. I'd like to open the floor now for nominations for vice chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Delegate Scott.
I nominate Delegate Warwick.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, nomination has been made by Delegate Scott, seconded by Delegate Hope. And do you accept, Delegate Orrock?
Sure.
Okay, I now ask that nominations for vice chair be closed. So Senator Hashmi moves and Delegate Hope seconds. All those in favor of closing the nominations signify by saying aye. Aye. Nominations are closed. We are now voting for the vice chair, and Delegate Orrock's name is before us. All those in favor of nominating Delegate Orrock as vice chair signify by saying aye. Aye. Without objection, I will note that Delegate Orrock is vice chair by unanimous consent. Okay, it's a hard-working committee. We managed to get through that very quickly. Thank you all very much. Next on our agenda, and we have Delegate Shin with us, is the presentation of, House Joint Resolution 85. And it should be in your packet, colleagues. And go ahead, Delegate Shin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations to you and to Vice Chairman Orrock, and thank you for your collective years of service on the Disability Commission. It's really appreciated. I am here today to talk about HJ 85, which was a resolution that we presented during this past session and was heard in the Rules Subcommittee on Studies and subsequently referred to this commission to consider. HJ 85 directed DMAS to study allowing a disabled person on a DD waiver whose monthly income exceeds the allowable amount to deduct disability-related expenses to maintain their eligibility to retain their waiver. There have been a number of studies over the years, including one of your senators, or Chairwoman Favola, that looked at this issue, and this was also in that line. Currently, disabled Virginians with a Medicaid-funded waiver to pay for group homes, community supports, and other services to build their independence, they have a monthly income limit of no more than 300% of the maximum supplemental security income to maintain their waiver, and the maximum allowable SSI for 2022 is just $841 a month, so maximum income from all sources amounts to $2,523. Most waiver recipients begin their time on a waiver receiving only personal SSI. And if they are able, they can work and earn a modest amount of income while still staying well below the income cap for receiving Medicaid. Having a job, for obvious reasons, has significant benefits, both physically and mentally, for those living with disabilities. However, we've seen problems arise when the parents of these disabled individuals either retire or pass away, and federal rules require Medicaid recipients to switch from receiving SSI to Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, on their retired or deceased parents' work record. And what happens there is, as a result of that, is that often triples their Social Security income to just below what they can have to remain eligible for their Medicaid waiver. State rules require most of this additional income to be paid out to help share the cost of their care, like a copay, which works well, and the figure utilized to determine how much of that additional income has to be paid out as a cost share is based on a calculation known as PMA, or your personal maintenance allowance, and that's calculated at 165% of the SSI maximum. And so it sort of becomes another problem when the higher amount received from SSDI often then requires an individual to either quit or very drastically reduce the number of hours they're able to work. And they're already very modest jobs, but very, very fulfilling, and helps to make sure that those folks have a sense of dignity and independence in their jobs. And so they have to lose those jobs or reduce their hours in order to stay under their limit. This study, HJ 85, would have asked stakeholders to look at a potential solution for this by discounting income that is used for disability-based expenses against the person's total countable monthly income, thereby putting them under the waiver cap and allowing them to maintain their waivers as well as their jobs. The distinction of a disability-based expense is critical, and that's sort of the key part of this. You'll hear after this, Chairwoman Favola also talk about the study from 2020 that looked at allowing medically needy spend downs for DD waiver recipients in addition to potentially raising the PMA percentage. And this study recommended both allowing the medically needy spend down as well as increasing the PMA percentage to 200% from the current 165, and both of which would have improved earning potential for those with disability waivers. In the case of the medically needy spend down provision, the study showed that it would have no cost to the Commonwealth whatsoever, but unfortunately, neither of those recommendations have been acted upon at this juncture. Our proposal does not make any recommendations related to raising the PMA percentage, which would have an associated fiscal impact because it would reduce the amount of cost share burden on the waiver recipient and increasing the Commonwealth's liability. The proposal for HJ 85 is actually much broader and is related to the spend down provision, which would allow disability-related expenses beyond medical care and services to count towards the spend down, and therefore would open up the earning potential for these individuals significantly, while it would not jeopardize or put at risk their waivers or their Medicaid services. And also important to note one more time, at no cost to the Commonwealth, no additional fiscal impact here for the state. Regarding spend downs as a comparison for those who are already on a Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus waiver, they have provisions for medical and nursing needs and already exists a spend down for non-Medicaid cover medical related expenses to keep those recipients under the cap. And this study would look at what it would look like if we allowed for DD and ID recipients to also have a spend down provision like that related to disability expenses. I think the one issue that we need to address is that medically needy expenditures are well-defined and familiar costs for purposes for our calculations, whereas disability-related expenditures are less defined here in Virginia. But I think there is an opportunity here for our agencies to create a good list of qualifying expenses based on what already exists through either ABLE accounts, achieving a better life experience, because that's already outlined out there, or in special need trusts, because that is also regulated through those expenses. And some of the qualifying expenses for ABLE accounts include things like personal support services, housing, disability-related transportation, assistive technology, and employment training, as well as other support and services. So, Madam Chair, in conclusion, I think we're seeing an increasing number of people with a barrier to work, and you'll hear from a few of them in just a little bit here. We're also seeing that there is a very, very tight labor market and a lot of employers who are looking for entry-level employees. And so this issue has gotten worse since you requested your study in 2020, and I would like to see this commission act on these sort of concerns.
Thank you, Delegate Shin. I will just say for those waiting to speak, we will take public comment at the end of the agenda because we have two items that are closely related, your presentation, and then Kelly Pauley is going to talk about a related study that actually I had sponsored in 2020.
Yep.
Madam Chair.
Colleagues, yes.
Quick question,
Sure.
Delegate Shin, if I may. The only real question I had, we talk about no fiscal implication because it's a capped enrollment. Would this not reduce the number of individuals since the pot of money will not grow? Right now, we're maxed out, I understand.
Yep.
So by changing this and the dollars stay the same, we're actually going to reduce the number of individuals that would be able to qualify for the waiver. Would I be correct?
No, that would not be correct.
Okay. Okay.
I see where you were heading, though. The report is not due to the General Assembly to November 30th. Is that correct?
Yes, that was the ask in the original bill, but that was back in February, and now it's September.
Yeah, so, but I think we'd want to
Yeah.
hear from the report.
Oh,
Delegate
sure.
Hope.
I mean, I think Delegate Orrock's, or Vice Chairman Orrock's question is a good one because I think we have a lot of questions about this. And I think this commission could take this study up and take a look and talk to DMAS. I'd like to hear how other states are handling because it's not a Virginia problem. I'd like to see how other states are handling it. And I think this is something the commission could probably take a look at, maybe bring in people from DMAS and maybe there's other experts from across the country that could come in and tell us how other states are doing it and take a look and just see if this is something that's feasible here in Virginia.
Certainly, if the commission has questions, I think it would be worthwhile maybe giving me your questions, and I can certainly write to DMAS and try to ensure that they're evaluated in this November 30th report to the General Assembly. And then after that report, maybe we can evaluate this further, because we do have a report coming. Yeah, according to her resolution. So we will be informed by the report, but I think, to your point, Delegate Hope, maybe we should get some questions on the record that we can submit to DMAS. Now, DMAS is here. I think it's, is it Miss Kelly? Kelly Pauley? Is somebody from DMAS should be here?
This is Kelly Poley.
Oh, hi. Okay.
Hi.
So this resolution didn't get acted on?
Correct.
Okay, so it was either tabled, or was it defeated, or was it tabled?
It was laid on the table.
Okay.
And Vice Chairman Orrock was kind enough to write a letter to encourage the commission to look at it anyways. Yes.
So you did write a letter?
To the commission.
To the commission?
Yes.
To us. It's here.
Right, it's
Why isn't your letter in my packet?
past letter to future self from Delegate Orrock.
All right. So, Ms. Pauley, do you have a comment on this resolution? Were you familiar with it? Do you?
Do you mean on the current resolution?
Yes, on Delegate Shin's resolution. I know you will be speaking later to the study that you did under my bill, but do you have any comment on this resolution, albeit it was tabled, but?
About using medically needy rules for them. The only thing I don't know is whether we can redefine what expenses can be used for the spin down. So that's what we would have to take back and find out whether, because we're allowed to use medical expenses that would be paid for by Medicare and Medicaid. If they're not paid by those entities, then we can use those as expenses for the medically needy spin down. So we would have to take that back to find out whether it could be redefined to include these other disability expenses.
Delegate Orrock has a suggestion.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I would suggest if we could ask DMAS to look at the issues within this resolution, not a full-blown study per se, but come back at our next commission meeting and give us their thoughts and suggestions on the matter that would still put us in the time frame where if we wanted to do something legislatively for the 23 session, we could still do so. But I think at this juncture, we don't have the expertise to know the implications, but let DMAS kind of give us their first blush look at it, and further specifically, if it's going to have, as we make changes, going to have any fiscal implications, we would need to know that on the front end.
Mm-hmm. But yes, we could do that.
That would be very
Good answer.
helpful. Do you need a letter, or is this verbal request sufficient?
A verbal request is fine.
Okay, great, thank you. So we will come back, when we meet again, hopefully we'll have some informed, information that we can chew on, see if we can move forward, or at least come up with a recommendation that we can then submit to the General Assembly.
Great, thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you,
Mr.
Delegate Shin. Okay, next on the agenda, Ms. Pauley, you were going to make a presentation on my study, which was completed, and I did submit accompanying budget resolutions, but they were not acted on by the General Assembly. But would you mind going over your study, or my study, in your presentation?
Yeah, ma'am, I sure will. Hold on. Just let me know when you can see the slides.
Yes, we could see them.
Okay, great. Thank you. So as you said, this was a study that was enacted back in 2020. I'll have to see whether I can advance the slides, which would be helpful. Hold on one second. It's a good thing I have lots of screens.
Well, so far we can see
Okay.
the first slide.
Right.
Okay, go
Right.
ahead.
We're on to the second one now? Okay, good. So this was just the wording of your request. And it was just saying that we needed to have a work group to look at these items. And so we did create a work group out of DMAS employees, other state employees, people in the community, parents of disabled individuals. So we had people that joined together virtually because this was right as the COVID epidemic was going, and worked on finding out what the impact and cost would be and also making recommendations. I wanted to make sure everybody understood what a medically needy spin down was. It's an option for people who meet non-financial qualifications for Medicaid, but their income is over the limit, and they can offset their excess income with medical expenses. So if they meet all the other criteria, it works like a like your health insurance deductible or your car insurance deductible. You have to have expenses that would equal the amount of excess income. And when I say excess, the income limits for medically needy are very low. So even when you do have that option, for instance, in Northern Virginia, the limit for 1 month of income is only $534.54. So any income over that amount would have to be obligated to medical expenses. We figure that amount out for 6 months, and if the person incurs expenses that equal that excess income amount, then they can become eligible for Medicaid for the rest of the 6 months. We don't go back and cover all the expenses. We only cover the expenses as of the day they met the spin down. So it wouldn't help everybody, but it helps some people. And it especially helps people who have large expenses, but aren't eligible for Medicaid in any other way. Only the CCC Plus waiver allows for that option. The DD waivers do not currently allow for that option. So if they are over the income limit, as the previous speaker was saying, they have no other option to get on Medicaid. They can't spend down their income to it. There's no fiscal impact to adding this because, as Senator Orrick said, the DD waivers have a capped enrollment. But what that means is there's a cap to the number of people who can be on the waiver. Not that there's a cap to how much we can spend or draw down from the federal government for those people. So what would change would be that some people with higher income could be in one of those slots if they were on the waiting list and then came up for a slot. It would just change the composition of some of the people who could get on the waiting list. But since there would be no new Medicaid enrollment, then it wouldn't really change our expenditures there. But it means that individuals could engage in employment without their earnings jeopardizing their waiver enrollment. And it's a state option about whether we can provide the medically needy option to those recipients. We don't have a medically needy option for everybody who could be eligible for Medicaid. It's only for certain groups. These are the requirements, the things that we can't change because they're federal requirements. And so what those include are the income limit, that 300% of SSI, that's set by the federal government. The fact that they have to have a cost sharing, that's the patient pay. So that means that whatever the member's total income minus all allowable deductions, that has to be paid to help pay for their cost of care. We have to allow patient pay deductions, but the federal government doesn't tell us how much. So we have to have deductions, but the amounts of the deductions are up to Virginia. And then the patient pay deductions on that side, on the last column, say what kinds of deductions we can allow. So non-covered medical expenses, guardianship fees, if you have a family member, expenses for living in the community, that's the personal maintenance allowance. You have to have one, that the actual amount is not set by the federal government. So what our option is that we could set a different amount for the monthly PMA based on a reasonable assessment of need. And that amount was set in 2006 at 165% of the SSI payment for one person and has not been changed since then. And as part of that study, we did recommend raising the personal maintenance allowance. The cost estimates at the time are here on this slide and explains how we came up with those cost estimates. Fortunately, somebody from budget, not me, not somebody from policy, came up with what the cost would be at that time. And so if we went up to 200% of SSI, we estimated then that the cost would be $9.5 million, of which half of that would be general fund money. And if we went up to 250% of SSI, the cost would be $14 million. Again, 7% general funds. Another thing we could do to adjust the personal maintenance allowance would be to implement an excess housing expense allowance for members in areas of the states with higher housing costs. For instance, in Northern Virginia, we could allow a higher personal maintenance allowance for people who lived in areas that had a higher cost of living. And then we again estimated how much that would cost. Another change that we recommended at the time was to allow, if someone had to, for instance, go into an institutional setting, into a nursing facility temporarily, they could keep their personal maintenance allowance the same as what it would be if they were at home. And the benefit of that is that when you're in a facility, you only get to keep $40 a month. But if we allowed these people to temporarily keep the higher amount, then it wouldn't cause them to lose their housing, or it wouldn't be such a big impact to them if they needed to temporarily go into a facility and then could go back home to continue with their lives. And that would give them a little bit of flexibility. And we estimated that only 10 people a month might temporarily have, wouldn't have as much of a patient pay as they would have been if they had had the normal procedure, which would be the month after you enter to go to the lower personal allowance. And so that's how we estimated those costs. And that's all that I have about the study. Of course, the whole study is online and can be looked at. Do you have any questions?
Colleagues, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Madam Chairman.
Yes, Delegate Orrock.
Ms. Pauley, thanks for the presentation. Yeah, the questions, first I wanted to make sure, am I correct? While the DD waivers are capped, is there not a wait list?
Yes, there is.
And at y'all's next presentation, if you could let us know how long that is and what it would cost to do away with the wait list, to fully fund it for all those eligible, so we at least have those numbers.
Yes, sir.
If I heard you correctly, if we're looking at raising the PMA, did I hear correctly, we could actually do that not on a flat basis statewide, but it could be done on a regional basis based on the local cost of living?
It could be done we have currently 3 groups in the state that are, like for medically needy, there are 3 separate limits, and we could do the same thing with the PMA.
Okay.
And based on the cost of living, yes.
And if that could be fleshed out in a little greater detail when you come before us next time as well, that'd be beneficial.
Okay.
Cost estimates. And then my final question, I'm on roll, Madam Chairman, thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Delegate Orrock.
I'm intrigued by the personal maintenance allowance. I completely understand what the effect of that is for that small population potentially right now. Are there other states that have done anything in that area, and what kind of guardrails have they put around it to ensure that if we give them that 6-month grace period, then they're going to be returning home. And I guess if we're going to do it as well, I don't see any magic behind the 6 month, but rather should it not be kind of evaluated on a case-by-case basis rather than just a blanket policy? That if we know an individual, they're making good progress but have a setback and end up having to stay in the facility for 7 months to then be returned to the community, why should they be disenfranchised, as it were? But similarly, if it's evident from the get-go that they're probably never going to return, why would we want to go down the 6-month grace period? So I think that there would have to be some kind of agency interaction there with recommendation on a case-by-case basis. If you give some further information on that at another time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent questions, Delegate Orrock. I would just like to reaffirm, because I think what I heard was somewhat encouraging. So for individuals on a DD waiver, there really isn't an option to sort of go over the income limit. Is that correct? I mean,
Right. Currently, if you're over that limit, you just can't be eligible. There's no way to spin down to eligibility for that.
So, but let's clarify, if we were to apply a spend down option and we identified maybe what would constitute the spend down option, did I hear you say we could still go down that pathway without adding an additional Medicaid cost? Because we're not increasing the number of Medicaid patients. Our Medicaid reimbursement would still be the same. We're merely allowing some to be able to medically spend down. Am I on the correct path here? Okay.
Yes, that's correct. You have the same number of waiver slots, no matter who you're allowing to make themselves eligible for it.
And we don't, and I also heard you say that the states had the option to implement that without going back through a waiver process.
That's correct. Yes, we would have to get permission. We would have to put in, a request and get permission. But generally, it's not a problem. Generally, it's not a problem to get permission if we're adding services.
And may I ask one other question? I guess I'll proceed. Delegate Hope was very interested on this DD waiver, maybe medical spend down framework, on what other states were doing and how they implemented it. If they did it region by region, which is Delegate Orrock mentioned that. So that might be useful when you report back to us.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask, when do you feel you could give us a good assessment of the issues we've raised and the context of Delegate Shin's resolution? What time frame are we looking at?
When are you meeting again?
Well, I was going to organize it around your around your availability.
I would think that we would want at least a month to try to get the budget numbers together.
I believe you would have a full month. We would not be meeting earlier than October 7th. I think we'd be looking at a mid-October meeting at the earliest. Okay. And staff can always contact you and we can see where you are. But you have been incredibly helpful, and Delegate Shin, thank you for your presentation as well. Thank you, Ms. Polly.
All right, thank you.
Question, just a statement.
Okay,
And
Delegate
Madam Chairman,
Orrock.
I mean, not a question, but one of the things this brings to light is the fact that we have always funded this based on the dollars available, not on the needs. And there's always been a wait list, and to me, that's just kind of an inherently unfair means of addressing the needs of these folks, because, once you got your slot, you're good. But until you are no longer eligible, either because you passed on or other circumstances, you're keeping someone else from being even considered, regardless of their personal circumstances, because it's all driven by the dollars we allocate in the budget, and that equates to X number of slots. And so I think in general, that's part of the policy we need to look at here. As we look at the spin down, we just need to look at the overall need, which is why it's a question, if we did away with the wait list, what's that going to cost us? So.
Very good point. And I will just conclude by saying, and I would like to get to a place where those who are on the DD waiver really can achieve a high quality of life, which would entail them to also have some outside employment. So there are lots of threads in this Medicaid waiver world, and we know that there are complications, but we're going to take one thread at a time, and if we can make progress and improve individuals' lives without having budget impacts, I think that's something the commission would be interested in pursuing, at least I hope. So unless there's further guidance we'd like to give to Ms. Pauley, I guess I will ask, I can invite you to stay and listen to the rest of the meeting, or if you have other things you would like to do or have to do, I understand completely if you have to leave the commission meeting at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we've allotted for public comment, and I know we have some individuals in front of us. I hope you have signed up. We may have individuals who are virtually signed up. How many? 18. Total? Okay. It is our practice to always hear from those who are physically in the room with us. So we will take your comments. I will ask individuals to, if you can, keep your remarks to about 2 minutes. And if somebody has made a point you wanted to make, then you can just say ditto, or, I concur. We accept that as a record of whatever way it goes, positive or negative endorsements. Without further ado, I will go ahead and ask the clerk to start calling the speaker. One speaker will be on deck. Once the first name called will come up. I do have a hard deadline of 2:15. At that time, the vice chair will take over the meeting. I do apologize in advance. Would you please call the first speaker?
Madam Chair, we did not take names for those in attendance. So if you are in attendance and would like to speak, would you please?
Then I guess you'll just have to line up.
Come to the microphone.
Do give us your name as clearly as you can and whatever organization you might be representing. And welcome to our Disability Advisory Commission meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Members of the Disability Commission. My name is Catherine Olson, and I'm a self-advocate with Williams syndrome. I live in Chesterfield County. I'm asking you to change the word handicapped in the Code of Virginia. It needs to be removed. Here's why. It is labeled, it sounds like you are slow learning, the R word, like a person is stupid, and it sounds like you can't communicate. It's really insulting to me and others with disabilities. I'm on the LI Self-Advocacy Alliance. We are a very strong group of self-advocates who advocate for people with disabilities. We respectfully request that the Disability Commission recommend that the words handicapped and handicapped are not used in the Code of Virginia. If others here agree with my request, please stand up.
That is very helpful, so thank you.
In some places, the Code of Virginia, the word is used disability, not handicapped. It is time for Virginia to change. I repeat, it is time for Virginia to change. And thank you for your time and have a wonderful, beautiful day. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Yes.
Hi, my name is Gail Brunk, and I'm actually stepping in for Maureen Hollowell, who is signed up virtually for the Virginia Association of Centers for Independent Living. I do have hard copies, as I am sure I will run out of time, that you can read on your pleasure then. The Virginia Association of Centers for Independent Living, VASIL, is a private nonprofit, consumer-directed statewide association of 17 centers for independent living in Virginia. VASIL advocates for the integration and inclusion of people with disabilities into all aspects of society. Collaborating through VASIL, SIL share information, provide mentoring to SIL staff and other disability organizations. We develop and pursue advocacy priorities and support community education that will further community integration and non-discrimination. Working with our legislators, VASIL was instrumental in the establishment of the Disability Commission. The Disability Commission was established to focus on services and funding related to Virginians with physical and sensory disabilities. I will briefly touch on independent living services, assisted suicide, personal assistance supports, and transition from nursing facilities, and ask that you take the moment to read the handout as it has more information. Centers for Independent Living provide a significant amount of independent living services to individuals cross disability to ensure that they have the opportunity to live independently in our communities. There are 5 regions of the Commonwealth not served by a SIL: Northern Neck, South Side, PD 14, Middle Peninsula, and Lower PD 9, that we are consistently seeking funding for and have support from both Senate and House in the past to cover those areas. They unfortunately have not made it through yet. I want to also call your attention to assisted suicide bills and share with you that individuals with disabilities are very concerned for where this bill might lead. I'm going to leave you with the rest out of respect for your time and others that want to speak. But there's a lot more information there about Centers for Independent Living and the significant impact of people with physical and sensory disabilities as well as other disabilities in our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you so much for leaving us with a written comment. I will, unless there are questions of our speakers, I will take comments after the speakers have presented before us. Welcome.
Hi there. My name is Pam Spearing, and you have a flyer with my son Jamie Spearing's picture on it. And I'm here to tell you about it. He was adopted at age 1 with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and intellectual disability and mental health diagnosis. He received special education all of his life, and he's now a 32-year-old man and a proud employee at Costco. He's worked there for 14 years. He's an avid sports fan and an athlete with Special Olympics. And this year he has the honor of being chosen as the Special Olympics ambassador, spreading the message of inclusion. He receives DD waiver services so that he can remain as independent as possible. He also receives an SSDI benefit. My husband is 70 and recently retired, and due to the increase in his SSDI benefit, based on my husband's earnings, he needed to reduce his hours to 8 hours a week. And upon my husband's death, he will need to quit his job completely. The spend down bill referred to this commission is very important, and our family is asking for your support for this in 2023. Without your support, my son and many other sons will be at home needing more support instead of less for the remainder of their lives, possibly 30 to 50 years. A parent's greatest fear and what keeps them up at night is the future of their loved ones. Their future should include the dignity of employment as a contributing member of their community. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to slip on my sandals. Hi, welcome. I'm Donna Burnett. You have something in front of you related to Brett's story. I am here in hopes of preventing my son from committing suicide. I'm just going to pause a moment on that one. Let me tell you why I make that statement. It is really my story, what keeps me up at night. Brett needs the DD waiver once I am gone. His services include supported employment at ECHO. His identity is tied to his work. Like us all, it's one of the first questions you ask or get when meeting somebody. Where do you work? I know the impact it would have on Brett when, upon my death, Brett's SSDI benefit increases and requires him to quit work to maintain his DD waiver supports. he will have reached the income cap due to the increase. You see, he has demyelination of the brain, a physical disability. This resulted in a developmental impairment. He functions at about a second grade level. He has twice mentioned thinking about committing suicide, but for the grace of God. His first time was when he could not drive. You see, he saw his sister and his cousins being able to drive, and his world collapsed. No independence. The second time was when he could not live independently. He tried. Too much anxiety. The second blow to his independence. The independence he now cherishes is working at ECHO. He works at FAA mowing the lawns with assistants. This DD waiver support is critical for him to work and have his identity. That's how he identifies now. If he loses a DD waiver services upon my death due to the increase in SSDI benefit, he will not only lose me, he loses his job. At that moment, I fear he will have no reason at all to live. Work is his life now, his stability, and his pride in himself. Am I past the time?
You're
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. You had a very personal, compelling story. If you could just wrap it up, that would be.
The last 3 paragraphs go into my support for using the same language on the CCC plus waiver, that the DD waiver really needs to spend down. He just needs to keep working. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your personal story. Is this,
Good afternoon,
Dennis?
Senator Favela. I was told to prepare a 3-minute remark, so I will jump around and try to cut it down. I'm Dennis Finley. I'm the parent of a 26-year-old disabled son. Meaningful employment for everyone is a goal we can all agree on. But for a disabled adult in Virginia, there's a Pandora's box of well-intentioned, poorly intentioned, uncoordinated, counterintuitive, and punitive regulations that impede this laudable goal. 4 years ago, when I first realized my disabled son faced barriers in Virginia to getting a meaningful life job, I shared my story with an executive director of a local CSP. He summed up my son's problem this way. "What I hear you telling me," he said, "is that because your wife lost her lifelong battle with depression and took her own life on Mother's Day in 2010, your disabled son is now being prevented from getting a simple job by the state of Virginia." I'm the parent behind several General Assembly bills that attempted to address this and other problems, SB 213 in 2020, HJ 85 in 22, and a few others. The solution that has been put forth, ditto, and it won't cost the state a dime. It was proven by SB 213. The legislative solution is the spin down allowed by the feds. It's been talked about how that would be structured. I received an email yesterday from an executive at Source America who told me how Maryland is doing it, and they actually have a very novel approach that I would ask that DMAS look into. We talked about that we would do the spin down based upon means tested contributions to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of our loved ones. Once the deductions are made, the remaining amount would be an adjusted base unearned income from which they could then earn. But here's the kicker. Earned income is subject to means testing just like unearned income. So if my son made $800 a month, 70% of that would be paid into the disability system that is already woefully underfunded. It's a win-win all the way around. And I'll close with this truly astonishing fact. Virginia pays more money for my son to go to a day program 5 days a week to do absolutely nothing than if he was allowed to work. Thank you.
Mr. Finley, thank you for your detailed comments. And if you'd like to leave the commission with your written remarks, that would be fine.
Thank you.
Hello, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Terry Morgan, the Executive Director with the Virginia Board for People with Disabilities, and really happy to be here today and see this topic on the agenda. It's the two aspects of the disability-related spend down and the personal maintenance allowance are really complicated. but they're really important and they really have an impact on people in really significant ways on their daily lives and how they spend their day and in what they do. And, they're policy decisions. They're policy decisions that are made by the state. And they're a disincentive for individuals on a DD waiver to join Virginia's workforce. This disincentive is real for the fear of losing important Medicaid benefits and services by earning income that puts those Medicaid benefits at risk. The very services and supports that promote integrated community living versus segregated institutional placements. Employment is important and meaningful, and I know you all know this. At a time when Virginia is emphasizing the importance of employment for all, and in particular competitive integrated employment for people with disabilities, the policy decisions being made should be consistent with that vision and with that mission that we are all working towards and that I know the General Assembly supports. So if we could take a look at our policy decisions and ensure that those policy decisions are aligned with our goals and with our values. And I again appreciate that you are looking at this issue and that you are really interested. I appreciated the questions and the DMAS presentation and look forward to following this and working with you all in any way we can. Thank you. And one more thing.
Thank you. Yes.
I support the ARC of Virginia and the advocates that have spoken about strike handicap.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Lucy Cantrell. I work for the ARC of Virginia. I'm the information and resources person. I am also a family member, and my husband is 81 years old. We have a son with a DD waiver. My husband cannot die because when he does, then my son will lose his waiver supports. I thank you for the empathy that I see on your face, Senator Favola. Didn't mean to get so choked up. I'll just also mention that a call I received yesterday is from a physician, and he is planning his retirement, trying to figure out how his son, who has a DD waiver, will be able to keep his waiver services upon his retirement. So he's looking at retiring a little bit sooner. And I think we all know that our medical field has been devastated over the past several years, and I would hate to see Virginia lose another physician retiring much earlier than he needs to. And so the ARC of Virginia certainly supports the work that you all are doing, and we're very appreciative of it. Thank you so much, Senator Vola and members of the commission.
Thank you very, very much. I will ask the clerk, do we have folks in the virtual world that want to speak to us?
Yes, Madam Chair. If you are in the Zoom room and you would like to speak, would you please raise your hand electronically and I'll promote you to a panelist. Please be aware that there may be some time before your name is called and you are able to speak. So once your name is called, please go ahead and speak. Wendy Little, Alyssa Marlowe, and Robin Ryan Arson. I'm bringing them into the room. So Alyssa Marlowe, if you could unmute and go ahead.
Yes, so thank you. Hi, my name is Alyssa Marlowe. I live in Arlington, Virginia. I'm quite involved in disability advocacy, but I'm here on my own. I'm also happy to support the waiver that I heard about for the disabled. I think work is very important to many of us who are disabled. I've not spoken here before. I'm not sure I'm in the right forum, and I look forward to being course corrected and learning the right forum if this is not it. I'm very anxious. I have post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm coming to ask the commission to champion not taxing disability pay in the state of Virginia. I believe the state has stopped taxing regular veterans' non-disability pay, or at least phased it out. I know that some of you, including Senator Favola, knows from her federal service that federal employees, much like our military counterparts, swore to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. We often deploy to war zones along with our military counterparts and in disaster zones and in harm's way. And we are also subject to harassment and attacks from the extreme right, unfortunately, at this point in some of our careers. If we're injured in the line of duty and we're forced to retire early on disability, we receive disability pay. We're not a burden to the state and where we reside, as we do get to keep our health care, and we are blessed that there is significant income that comes along with this service. I would just like Virginia to be more friendly to disabled, and I think we can do better. I think, and I'm happy to follow up, that it's 11 states that don't tax regular federal retirement, let alone disability retirement. It would be a significant contribution to the few of us who are forced to retire early. I'm 44 for context, and I would certainly like to work with you to make Virginia one of those states that people feel welcome when they're disabled and not forced to relocate. I look forward to learning more about the appropriate forum, and I'm happy to follow up with Senator Favola or Delegate Hope, who I know, and my delegate is Lopez. Thank you for all that you do for disabled. Thank you very much. I look forward to being course corrected.
Thank you, Ms. Marlowe.
Robin Reinerson.
Hi, I am Robin Reinerson. I am a former healthcare provider, and I am the owner of Jake's Ice Cream in Falls Church, Virginia. I opened this ice cream business primarily to employ people with disabilities. And as an employer, as well as a family member of somebody with disabilities, it is exceedingly frustrating for me since we just opened a year ago. Minimum wage has gone up twice. It's going up again January 1st, and there's no adjustment made to the income cap or to the ability to spend things down. As a result, even with only 1 year in business, I have already had some of my staff have to curtail the hours that they work so that they don't lose their benefits. This is completely antithetical to making people independent and encouraging them to work. So you've heard from family members here, so that if some of them die and the benefits, their payments go up, they will lose their ability to work altogether. I'm already dealing with having to lose staff or cut staff and employ more people for shorter timeframes. When this hasn't even taken place yet. It makes no sense to me. And I would like the commission to have a look at this and see if there is some way for people to be able to maintain their employment as long as they're disabled, regardless of who is alive in their family or not alive in their family. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you so much. Delegate Hope.
If I could comment, I appreciate Robin's comments. If anyone's in Northern Virginia, my colleagues, I'm going to take you to Jake's. It is a fantastic ice cream establishment. But Irene, you're already there. But you know, I was thinking of you, Robin, today because of our conversation about all the people that you hire. And thank you for doing that and your commitment to do that. We need more people just like you to employ people with disabilities. But I was thinking of you and Jake's as this meeting was going on, and I wanted to mention you all because of our conversation about the need of hiring more employees, which is a good thing, but it also limits the ability that they have to work because of this threat that they would lose their benefits. And so it's really important that we try to take a close look at this. But I appreciate, Robin, all the things that you're doing. And again, the invitation stands to my colleagues from outside of Northern Virginia.
Thank you, Thank you, Delegate Hope.
Wendy Little, if you could unmute and go ahead. And after Wendy will be Lucy Beednell. Wendy Little, if you could unmute and go ahead. Wendy Little, if you can unmute and go ahead. All right, Madam Chair, I think we should move on to Lucy Beednell. Okay. If you can unmute and go ahead, Lucy.
Thank you, Disability Commission. I'm Lucy Beednell with the ARC of Northern Virginia, and I am elated to have heard so many stories talking about the need to look at DD waiver spend down options. I'm equally heartbroken. I am the person who answers the calls at the ARC of Northern Virginia when parents are starting to be afraid about, as Lucy Cantrell said, what happens because they aren't allowed to die. And as we have had boomers retire and boomers get sick and pass away, I am getting more and more calls from people for whom that has already happened. And we have a loss of a parent and a loss of a job and a loss of friends and coworkers and life meaning happening all simultaneously. And as you heard from Robin, we are doing this also at the cost of our small and local businesses who now can't hire people with disabilities who are struggling desperately to find people who want jobs, and we want them. So I'm asking you all today to not just support this measure. I would love to see the name of patrons on Delegate Shen and Senator Favola's future legislation to be absolutely packed full with every one of you. I would love for you to be pulling this out and speaking on the floor. And I would love for you to be able to go back to your communities and say you are empowering people with disabilities to work and making sure that employers can find the employees that they need, because we are them. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bedell.
Wendy Little, if you can go ahead and unmute and give your testimony.
I will say for individuals having technical issues, if you want to send us written material or if you want to email me, I can always share the information with my colleagues. I'm at District 31 at senate.virginia.gov.
And with that, Teresa Champion, if you can unmute and go ahead, followed by Courtney Cesar Mayers.
Thank you, and good afternoon. My name is Teresa Champion. I'm with the Virginia Autism Project, and I support all the comments of the previous speakers. It is common sense to include a spend-down allowance to enable Medicaid waiver recipients to work and earn an income, yet keep their life-saving community supports. I've been privileged for the last 5 months to be an ECNV agent of change under a grant to ECNV by the Ford Foundation. We examine barriers to employment and housing. The main barrier here is fear. Fear for people with disabilities that they will lose their resources, lose their independence, and if they lose their resources, they can't easily re-enter the system if they need to. And this fear is paralyzing and keeps many people out of the workforce. People on Medicaid waivers, all Medicaid waivers, have disability, medical, or impairment-related expenses to be able to work. Reliable, accessible transportation is one. DD waiver numbers are exploding as the numbers of autistics explodes. Now the CDC says 1 in 44 children have a diagnosis of autism. In 2000, the CDC said it was 1 in 150. Because autism is a spectrum of abilities and many are able to be employed, but they still need support in the community. Please support this legislation to allow this spend down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Courtney Cesar Mayers, followed by Sherry Takimoto.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Courtney Cesar Mayers. I have a disability. I'm also a self-advocate. And I agree with everything that I've heard here about the waivers. And I also wanted to just bring up a point that I didn't hear mentioned, was that there are many states that actually completely disregard the income for disabled adult children when determining a Medicaid waiver. And they reduce that down to 0 the same way that it is reduced when somebody moves from SSI to SSDI and is trying to maintain Medicaid. Some of these states are New York, New Jersey, Utah, and I just hope that the commission will look into this, because I think that even though any action on this would benefit people with disabilities, I also think that it would be a simpler solution to just completely disregard all DAC income if it's preceded by SSI. Thank you. Oh, and also, actually, I have one more thing to say.
Yes.
And I don't know if I'm out of time, but I have personally had to reduce employment to maintain medical benefits in the past, and it had a very negative effect on me. And it just seems so unfair that we would impose this on people. It just seems unfair. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Sherry Takimoto, followed by Kenny Emberton.
Good afternoon. I'm Sherry Takimoto. I'm with the Independent Center of Northern Virginia. We're our Center for Independent Living in our area. And I want to support the advocacy of the folks who have spoken before, and I'll try not to repeat. By virtue of their level of disability, people with the DD waiver would otherwise be institutionalized if they did not get the support they receive. At the Independent Center, we support employment for people with disability and consider it to be a basic human right. Virginia believes that employment, we are a right to work state, and by limiting the ability of people with disabilities to work, you are limiting their freedom and their right to work and their right to determine their own lives and be of value. As said before, I was a little bit confused about the cost to the state when the folks who are working will work and support payment for what it is that they're receiving in services and support. And so there should be a savings to the state as opposed to a cost to the state. So that's very confusing to me. But the main point is that in our family, my son, who I think is trying to sign up to talk today, has worked for 17 years. And once we retire, he's going to, what's he going to do? Go to a day program? Thanks.
Thank you.
Kenny Emberton, followed by Joan Erickson.
Hi, my name is Kenny Emberton. I'm the Director of Operations for Employment Advocates Group. We're based in Northern Virginia and support people in over 20 counties and independent cities across Virginia. I did want to say one thing about Jake's. I've been there. Very good ice cream. So I definitely urge anybody to go. But I just wanted to echo what many people have said before me. I was actually invited here by Dennis. So thanks, Dennis, for letting me know about this. I just wanted to speak because we interact with numerous people who of course we're employment advocates group. So we're all about advocating for people with disabilities to find the best job for them. And this policy right now is very limiting to a lot of individuals who are looking to find the job for them. So I definitely urge there to be a change. Multiple people who we support are definitely worried about this, especially as their parents get older. And we definitely want people to not be limited to work as many hours as they would like to, and to find the best job for them. They don't need to look for the lowest paying job to get the least amount of hours. As many people have said, people really have an identity that they build off of the work that they do. So we definitely want there to be a change so people aren't limited by the amount of hours and the type of work they do. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to let you know that there are 3 more speakers, but if there's anybody else in the Zoom room who would like to speak that has not already spoken, if you could raise your hand electronically.
And I would ask you to close the Zoom room after
Yes, ma'am.
these 3 speakers.
Joan Erickson, followed by Vic Nichols. Joan, if you could unmute yourself.
That better? Good afternoon. My name is Joan Erickson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I concur with the absolutely compelling stories that are heard today. I too am a parent, a person with a disability. I also stay up at night worrying about my daughter's future. It feels like just yesterday that we were in the school system fighting for curriculum to prepare her for a job, and then the fight for a job that was actually a good fit for her. And then when we finally get it, we're looking at a couple of years from retirement and having to limit her job. This is not optimal. If there's a very short window at which she's able to work, so I'd like her to continue to work as long as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vic Nichols, followed by George Rogers.
I am Vic Nichols. Most of y'all know me from having spoken before. I work full-time. I am a taxpayer, and I'm also disabled. Some of the other things that I've been able to do outside of making sure a voice is heard during the General Assembly sessions is I also compete in swimming against non-disabled people. I, as a matter of fact, have some records in not only Virginia Masters, in the state, 2 state swimming competitions, and I'm also in the record books of nationally in America. So definitely, given the right opportunities, given the ability to work with us, you'll definitely find that it's a lot more useful to make sure that we can do for ourselves. We actually can, and we're worth investing into. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have George Rogers.
Hello. My name is George Rogers. I am in Virginia and U.S. advocate. And also, I'm also on a CC. I'm on a CC Plus, right, Mom? CC Plus waivers, but I don't have a job yet. So, but I do know that who actually do have jobs and need these waivers, so we need to get them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I go what my Arc of Virginia pals say on the panel. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Does that conclude our speaker list?
It does, Madam Chair. We do have Wendy Little, who is still here. Wendy, if you can unmute and go ahead. I believe she's still having difficulty, Madam Chair, but that does complete.
Thank you. Before I leave, I do want to get one piece of business done, and we did hear testimony about changing the nomenclature in our statutes, removing the word handicap or handicapped. And I would ask the commission for unanimous consent so I could direct staff to come back to us with a recommendation on what we should replace the word handicapped and handicapped with. A suggestion has been made that we perhaps track it with federal nomenclature. I think folks on the commission would be very interested in updating the way we speak about those with challenges.
Madam Chairman, I'm going to take a slightly different tact on that. I'm going to move that the commission request staff to draft legislation for introduction in the 23 session that would have the effect of having our language mirror federal language as it relates to the term handicap.
I think that would be wonderful. Yes, Delegate Hope.
I don't disagree with that at all. I would like to hear, though, what the federal language is right now.
Before we
commit to anything, and I would like to know that.
We don't have to introduce it.
No, we don't have to introduce it, but I think this might be the good forum to hear from other stakeholders, because I do think people have opinions. We did hear today from Catherine, and she suggested disability, but I don't know because that might be what the federal nomenclature is. I brought this idea to the commission from a constituent a couple of years ago, and it just never got anywhere. And so I would like us to take a good look at it and give an opportunity. But there are a number of different national advocacy groups who have recommendations and who'd like to come and speak to us, and maybe at our next meeting.
Okay, I'm going to say that you've made a motion, Delegate Hope, which will in effect direct staff to come back to us.
Yeah, and maybe we can have a hearing on, Madam Chair, if we could.
Yes.
That would be my motion.
So staff, you'll be coming back to us with information on what the federal nomenclature is and what a recommendation would be for us to move forward. So we would take public comment on a recommendation, and then the next step would be legislation. Is that your motion, Delegate Hope?
That sounded better than what I said.
Okay, Delegate Hope made the motion, seconded by Delegate Orrock. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Does anybody wish to say no or to abstain? Hearing none, that is unanimous, and I thank you, my colleagues. And now I'm going to turn over the running of the meeting to our illustrious Vice Chair. And I apologize profusely, but sometimes you get into these
Thank you, Madam Chairman. When you got to go, you got to go.
You got to go, you got to go.
Well, Commission members, to my knowledge, we have largely completed our agenda. We do need to have consideration of our work plan, and my suggestion would be that individuals would contact staff and that we would see at our next meeting, and I want to say individuals, commission members, and stakeholders, contact staff with issues they think would be appropriate for us to consider in the coming year. And for lack of a better analogy, next meeting, we'll kind of throw it against the wall and see what sticks, recognizing we're going to have a limited time frame. We can kind of prioritize. If that's agreeable, then that handles that part of the agenda. We do have, I think Connor wanted to make a remark or comments this time, and after him, any other commission members.
People can only earn up to $2,523 and keep a DD waiver. Once they get Social Security benefits from their parents, they are often near or above that gap. In my future, and so many of us during that sad time when we lose our parents, we can collect 75% of our Social Security monthly. Our parents, like my mom, worked hard to put money aside or plan money to give to us for our entire life. Look, I know this is a concern of my mom to be there for me, even when she's in heaven. What happens due to the current law is wrong. The system, as it is now, keeps us back from careers of even just finding work that we can do. We're not as marketable to most companies if we can't work full or even part-time hours. You see, the system takes away our independence. It also takes away our living options. Working a full or even part-time job could make a difference. There is work out there to be done that many of us can do, but we can't lose the benefits the waivers give us. Just like you, we want to work and make as much money as we can. We want to spend our money and do things. Some of us may get married and have a family. Others may live independently or with roommates or support people. We may want to eat out and have a social life, or we may prefer quiet time with good books or movies. I've learned that money pays for the basics and for all the extras. I also know that each one of us has support needs, and the waivers can be a lifeline, allowing us to do what we can. Virginia cannot change that gap. That is a federal rule. But Virginia, we can choose not to count some of that income. The CCC Plus waiver for medical needs doesn't count in income spent on medical expenses. Let's change the DD waiver to not count income spent on disability issues. This is logical and makes sense. Of course, Delegate Shen will introduce a bill to do this in 2023. I'm asking to support it and have a Disability Commission members co-sponsor it. I vote yes. I'm asking for the members of the House and the Senate to approve and even co-sponsor this bill. Delegate Shen, I will help you with this because I believe in your bill. It'll help allow individuals to feel pride and confidence to be as independent as they can, to be all that we can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Any other members of the commission have comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Delegate Scott.
Just want to say how much I appreciate the time the parents came out to speak on behalf of their children. As a father with a daughter who gets the CCC Plus waiver, sometimes you get a little ahead of yourself and you put an extra C in there. Brings about different elements of life that I never would have dreamed of going through. And so the DD waiver and the income limits with that is something that I have been aware of for quite a while. I've had conversations with Delegate Shin about this, and definitely looking forward to ways that we can make sure that each person is a contributing member to society according to their ability, so that they can have the dignity of living the life that they want to live. I think it's very important. And as a parent, my heart goes out to all the parents out there that are stressing over this issue for their kids. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Delegate Scott. Other commission members? If not, before the commission will rise, I would request staff to poll the commission members for a date around the middle part of October, that we would be looking for availability of room and poll the members to try and find a date where the most members could be able to attend it. And towards that end as well, that would be kind of for the folks listening in or in the room, getting your comments to staff as to potential topics for the coming year to be considered. Any other matters to come before the commission at this time? If not, again, my appreciation to all those who participated in the commission members. Committee will rise.